If you tolerate shitty relationships because you don't think you deserve better, then that comes from having no self-worth. And if you don't have self-worth, it's affecting your bank account too. And I almost didn't even make this video because people who have low self-worth, they don't like hearing about it, they don't like talking about it because it makes them feel worse about themselves. And I know this because I used to have zero self-worth. And a lot of my clients that I've worked with have came to me with very low self-worth. And I know from experience that if you stay in relationships that aren't good for you because you don't want to be alone or you don't think that it deserves anything better, it affects your bank account too. And in my opinion, that isn't even the worst part. The worst part is how it chips away at your soul and the quality of your life. Because when you have low self-worth, you're just miserable in your own life and your life doesn't even feel good. So if you don't mind tough love, or what I call Chicago edge, because I'm originally from Chicago, although I now live in Hawaii, I will always follow up my Chicago edge with Hawaii glow. So if you want to learn about broke energy in relationships and how you can shift to abundant energy, I invite you to keep watching. Otherwise, I won't be offended if you leave because this is the 7th video in the series and I have an entire list that I brainstormed. I think there's 18 in total, so there's going to be at least 10 more videos in this series. So I have no doubt that there is plenty more for you to learn in other videos, so you can always save this for future reference and come back if and when you are ready. But if you have stayed in a relationship that wasn't right for you because the thought of losing that person felt more terrifying than staying, then this is for you. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why broke energy keeps you chasing, tolerating, and shrinking in your relationships, and what abundant energy actually looks like in relationships. And at the end, I'm going to show you some shifts that will change who you attract and how you show up in every relationship that you have. And if you're new here, I'm Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach, and I help successful on paper women expand their inner and outer wealth so their life feels as good as it looks. And again, stay until the end because I think I have at least 4 action items today because these videos are not just about information. Information is everywhere. How you make real changes in your life is taking bold action, and that's how we go from knowing to glowing. So, what causes low self-worth? There could be many reasons, and it probably started in your childhood or maybe in your teenage years. But I'm going to tell you my personal story, and it's not to talk about myself. It's because I have learned that the human experience tends to be universal, even though the nuances of everybody's story are different. So I'm going to tell you my personal story to see if you see any resemblance to your personal story, and that may help you understand why you tend to have low self-worth, or maybe you have still struggle with this. But I grew up with emotionally unavailable parents. And what that meant for me is that my mom treated our household like a business. So there was always food on the table, our physical needs were taken care of, but I don't ever recall having quality conversations with my parents. I don't remember my parents ever really showing an interest in who I was or getting to know me. I honestly don't even remember my parents, and I'm talking from ages 0 to 18. I don't ever remember my parents telling me that they loved me or even hugging me. And my mom was extremely critical, and my dad was an alcoholic, and he was a passive alcoholic. So he would come home from work, he would sit on his recliner in the living room and drink beer and watch TV, and then he would go to bed. So even though my parents didn't get divorced until I was in college, he was physically present in the house, but it was like he wasn't even there. I don't even remember having conversations with my dad. Like, that's how emotionally unavailable he was. And then another dynamic to this is On my mom's side of the family, my sister and I are the oldest grandkids, and there's a 6-year age gap between me and my next cousin. So for 6 years, my sister and I were the only two grandchildren. And my grandparents they were annoyed by us basically. And I wasn't able to identify what that was until I was older, because I learned that during that time, my grandpa was depressed and he didn't like being around kids. So I think that's why we were so irritating to them, because it would annoy my grandpa. And whenever my sister and I were at my grandparents' house, my mom has 2 sisters and 2 brothers. It was always their responsibility to like get us out of the house and do something with us. But my point about that is, I think energetically I could sense that my grandparents were also emotionally unavailable. So overall, all of the adults in my life, especially my primary caregivers, who were my parents, they treated me, even though I truly believe that my parents loved me, they treated me like they didn't even like me, and my self-worth reflected that. And especially because my mom was so critical, I developed perfectionism behavior, because in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm perfect, then I won't be criticized, which of course is not true. But in my mind, it did deflect some criticism, and it was the only thing that I felt like I was in control of to avoid criticism. So I became an extreme perfectionist. I was also a total people pleaser. I would do anything for love and approval from anyone because I wasn't getting it from my parents. So this showed up, especially in school, because again, these behaviors were formed in 0 through 18. So I very early on understood how the school system worked. So I gamed the system, so to speak, and I learned how to make straight A's. And then this carried on into my adult life, because like all of us, these behaviors and survival strategies, they started as children and teenagers because we're under the caretaker of our parents or our primary caregivers. And so they're actually very intelligent because they allow us to survive in those environments. But as adults, they no longer serve us anymore, but that's the only thing that we know. So we continue with those behaviors and strategies. So for me, that turned very toxic because I became addicted to exercise. I ran marathons, and it wasn't even about being a high achiever. It was about being an overachiever. Like I would run myself to injury, and then I would run on injuries. I had 6-pack abs, but I basically starved myself and over-exercised to get to that point. And my whole entire point about like these people-pleasing, perfectionist, over-exercise, under-eating, all of those behaviors stemmed from having low self-worth. Because when I look back on all of that, what I really realize is how much I hated myself. And all of that was really self-harming behaviors, because if I wasn't suffering, I felt uncomfortable. So this is about relationships, so it should come as no surprise that out of all of these behaviors spawned toxic relationships. And I could go on all day about all of the shitty relationships that I've had, but the worst one it was 8 years in total, but it was so off and on that I couldn't even calculate what the actual number of years was on. And he was always cheating on me. Oh, and here's a crazy story. At one point, his mom died, and he invited me and the other girl to his mom's funeral, unbeknownst to both of us, but it was known to everybody else. So that was wild. And he constantly gave me the silent treatment, which was so devastating. And he had to do everything on his terms, or he didn't want to do it. And I could go on all day, but that's the high level overview. But anyway, he treated me like crap from the very beginning. It wasn't like he was like manipulative or trying to, what's the phrase, pull the wool over my eyes. He was very clear that he was an asshole. But because my parents treated me the exact same way, because in hindsight, he was a perfect blend of both of my parents. And so because he reminded me of my parents, I truly thought the reason he treated me that way, I thought it was normal. So I tolerated it. But the worst part about this is when I met him, my self-worth was simply low, which is not a good place to be. But by the end of that 8-year period with him, my self-worth was zero because he had chipped away whatever was left. And I take my share of accountability because I let him treat me that way. But this is my point. If you didn't get the love you needed or deserved from your parents, you will always try to get it from romantic partners. And that is so important that I'm going to repeat it again. If you didn't get the love you needed or deserved from your parents, you will try to get it from romantic partners. And it's not your partner's responsibility to make up for something that your parents didn't give you. And trust me, I get it. It's not fair that your parents emotionally neglected you, and it sucks because you deserve better. But it's not your partner's responsibility to make up for it. That is on you to fill your own void. Other people should enhance your life, not do the heavy lifting on making you feel whole. And this applies to platonic friends too, because I don't know about you guys, but I spent way too long in certain friendships that were not good for me, but I justified it because we had been friends forever or blah, blah, blah. There was always an excuse because I think friendships don't always seem on the surface to hold as heavy as a weight, but they really do. So anything I say in terms of relationships, I will mainly be talking about romantic relationships, but all of this absolutely applies to any other relationship. So even like coworkers or business partners or anything. And before we get into the how or our action steps, I want to talk about how this relates to money because this is important in general, but I want to tie it back to money because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And the woman who tolerates being undervalued in her relationships and friendships is the same woman who accepts the first salary offer without negotiating. And the woman who shrinks her opinions to keep the peace and is a people pleaser is the same woman who prices her services below what she is worth because she doesn't want to seem like too much or she doesn't feel like she deserves that much. Or the woman who stays in dynamics that she's outgrown is the same woman who stays in careers, businesses, and financial situations that she has definitely outgrown because leaving feels too uncertain and uncertainty feels unsafe. So your relationship patterns and your money patterns are running from the same belief system. And when you start shifting one, the other shifts too. Because self-worth isn't compartmentalized. Did I even pronounce that right? It's not compartmentalized. It shows up everywhere. So it shows up in who you date and who you keep in your life and what you charge and what you accept and what you walk away from and what you decide that you're worthy of. And a perfect example of this is I once had a client come to me. She was fresh off a breakup and she was convinced that she would never meet anyone else and love wasn't available to her and all of the other bullshit limiting beliefs that we like to tell ourselves. But we changed her mindset by only doing one thing, by setting standards for her dating life. So that mostly meant by deciding what she was no longer available for, but it was also focusing on what she wanted. And initially she freaked out and she definitely did not think it was going to work, but she courageously took bold action and implemented those standards in her life. And guess what? She turned into a dating machine. She was going on so many dates that she had to turn people down. And at one point, she had a whole roster of guys that she was going on first and second dates with, which I don't know about you guys, but ideally that's what you should be doing when you first start dating someone so that you don't become too attached before you get to know them. But I've never been the kind of person that's been able to do that because I just can't even keep track of it and it's too overwhelming. But, so I don't know how she was keeping track, but my point is the difference was her energy. And I don't care if you believe in woo-woo or science, but energy is real. And because she was coming of this place of knowing what she deserved, even when she didn't believe it yet, she was her behaviors and habits were coming from that place, she attracted, not only did she attract a totally different caliber of people, she attracted many more people because she was in this energy of like having fun and curious and exploration and having standards for her life. Because actually, before I get to that, I want to share the very last part of the story because I want to relate it back to getting money. Every single area of her life changed from having standards, including her job, because she ended up getting another job that respected her more, and shocker, it paid way more. So I'm telling you guys, this shit works. But what I was going to say, because I was about ready to go off on a tangent, so I'll try to make this short because it still is a tangent. But when you have low self-worth, you are a magnet for people who want to take advantage of you. So another cool thing that happens when you raise your self-worth is you stop attracting shitty people. And that's not to say you never get someone who wants to take advantage of you, because you will. But because you have higher self-worth, you will also have boundaries, so you just don't even tolerate that kind of behavior. So before I get too much on a tangent, let's get into our action steps. I think I have at least 4. I need to look at my notes, which I'm going to do in a second, so I remember all of them. And that may seem like a lot, but if you've been watching this series, there are a few repeats. And on that, I only repeat things if they are important. So if you have done them before, I invite you to do them again. And also, there's actually 5 because I just peeked at my notes. So there's going to be 5, and the point is not to overwhelm you. Simply integrate one at a time, and you can always come back to this later for the others. The most important part is, and the entire point of all of this is, that you are taking bold action in your life. I don't care which one of these you do. All I care about is that you're taking action, because just absorbing the information alone isn't enough to make changes. So if you have low self-esteem and you don't want to use someone else to fill the emotional void that you didn't get from your parents, what do? You focus on yourself. And I know that's easier said than done, but the O in my Glow method stands for overcome external validation. And in short, what that means is when you're focused on you, and if you're happy with yourself, and if you have integrity and have values for your own life, and if you're being the best possible version of yourself at any given point, then you stop caring about what other people think of you, and you invite people into your life instead of chasing after them. So this is all based on the O in my Glow method. So action step 1, do one thing a day that brings you joy. And before you brush this off like, I don't know what she's talking about, this isn't related to relationships or money or self-worth, it is. Because if you remember, before I was talking about how because I had low self-worth and I also had a lot of self-loathing, I didn't think I deserved to feel happy. So I was constantly self-harming myself to ensure that I didn't feel happy. But if you are alive on this earth right now, you deserve to be happy. So if you do one thing that brings you joy a day, that brings you joy, at least one thing a day, that's your minimum, you should be doing more than that, then you condition yourself that you deserve to feel good, because you do. So this doesn't have to be a whole production. So the one thing I do mainly a day that brings me joy is surfing. But that can tend to be time consuming, because from the time I leave my door to the time I come home, it can take about 2 hours. So if I don't have that time commitment, another thing I like to do is dance. And most songs these days are only about 3 minutes long. So just throw in a song and dance for 3 minutes. Anything that brings you joy. It doesn't have to be time consuming. All that matters is that you're happy and having fun, because again, that conditions you that you deserve to be happy and have fun, because you do. So action step number 1, do one thing a day that brings you joy. And action step number 2, stop abandoning yourself. And again, I know this is easier said than done, but this is how you're going to do it. Get out of autopilot. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but being on autopilot is one of the most dangerous things you can do in your day-to-day life because you're not questioning anything. So I want you to get out of autopilot and question everything you do and why you do it, especially financially. And when I say everything, I'm not exaggerating. And you only have to do this for the short term until you start recognizing your patterns. So for example, if someone makes you uncomfortable, speak up. Because if you're on autopilot and you don't realize that the sensation in your body means that you feel uncomfortable, you're not going to speak up. But if you start questioning, why am I feeling this way? Oh yeah, I don't feel uncomfortable because they said that. Then your brain knows, now I need to speak up. Other ways this shows up. Saying it's fine when you actually got your feelings hurt because expressing your feelings feels unsafe. And this is another one that relates to dating. Convincing yourself that you're chill while silently building resentment, because low maintenance in dating really just means having low standards. And no, we are not doing that anymore. And how this shows up in money, let's see. Oh, actually, I have more examples of how this shows up overall. Over-explaining your boundaries so that nobody thinks you're mean, minimizing your needs so that you're easier to love, and self-abandonment also shows up in money. Agreeing to things you can't afford to oppress people, staying in underpaid jobs, tolerating financial imbalance in relationships, emotionally spending when anxious, and avoiding your bank account completely. So my point is, when you're questioning everything you do and why you do it, you can start understanding your patterns and getting out of autopilot. And questioning your patterns, it's not about shaming you. It's just to be more aware of when you're self-abandoning. Because when you unconsciously self-abandon, it just reinforces that it's okay. So you want to consciously pull yourself out of abandoning yourself. And that is started by being more aware and pulling yourself out of autopilot. And to further practice pulling yourself out of autopilot, do this even when it's not necessary. For example, brushing your teeth. How many times have you zoned out brushing your teeth? Especially when you have an electric toothbrush and it's like timing everything for you and you literally don't have to think about anything except moving your hand. So I like to pull myself out of autopilot even in those moments. So action step number 2, question everything you do and why you do it, especially financially, so that you can discover your self-abandoning patterns and stop abandoning yourself, especially financially. Action step 3, learn how to feel safe in your body while feeling your feelings. And again, if you've been watching my videos, this one is not new, but if you want to start acting in a way of self-worth to reinforce the belief that you have self-worth, it's going to cause some uncomfortable feelings. So you need to learn how to feel safe in your body while feeling your feelings. And a good exercise for this is, there is an exercise that helps calm down the physical sensations in your body in only 90 seconds. Because it is a scientific fact that when you are triggered and you're feeling these intense emotions like anxiety or any other uncomfortable feeling, the sensations in your body only last for 90 seconds. The reason that they tend to last longer is because of the stories, the emotional stories that we tell ourselves in our heads. So for 90 seconds, step number 1, get rid of the story. And I know that's easier said than done, but I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the way I do it is I tell myself it's only temporary, which in all fairness, it is only temporary because you do have to deal with a story later. But just for the purpose of feeling safe in your body while feeling your feelings, get rid of the story. And then step number 2, focus on the physical sensations of your body. So I usually feel things in my chest. So I usually put a hand on my chest and I just think like, oh, my chest feels tight. It feels this, it feels that. I also put a hand over my diaphragm area because ideally you should be doing diaphragmatic breathing. I don't always do that. But the point is, make sure you're breathing. So I put a hand in that area to make sure I'm breathing. And then some specific things that I personally like to do, because this exercise is not unique to me, I did not make it up, but the part that I do that's unique to me is I just tell myself, I am safe in your body, because that is the truth. I know your feelings feel like they're dangerous and overwhelming, but you are safe in your body. And another thing I like to do, especially if I'm at home, which is a safe space, I will look around to physically confirm that my surroundings are safe, because I want to be as safe as possible, and I like to reinforce that and validate that to myself. And I promise you, as long as you get rid of the emotional story in your head, your feelings do go away in 90 seconds. And even if your feelings are not that intense where you need to bring them down in 90 seconds. This is an exercise that helps you feel safe in your body while feeling your feelings. So this is very important, and this is why I've repeated this exercise in at least 10 videos. Action step number 4. Notice where you overcompensate financially to feel worthy. So I know a lot of people struggle with this because I have talked about this with clients. To give you a personal example, I only struggled with this once in my life, but during COVID, I went through a really hard time. I went through a breakup. I had a really bad emotional rock bottom. And for whatever reason, because I had never done this before, I started spending money like crazy to feel better about myself. And I've had a lot of clients tell me that they do this. If they have a bad day, then they'll impulse shop or whatever, because spending money gives you that little dopamine hit in the short term, but then you kind of go down this guilt spiral later. So if you are an impulse shopper, I want you to simply notice, because being aware is the first step to change. Simply be aware of where you're getting these dopamine hits from spending money. And funny note on this, I had another client tell me, not only did she spend money to get a dopamine hit, luckily, she would always also get that same dopamine hit from returning the item. So at least she wasn't wasting money because it came full circle. But you can also look at it that way, try to get your dopamine hit from returning the shit that you don't need. Action step number 5, and this one is super important, and I think this is the last one, yes. Stop waiting to feel worthy before behaving worthy. So the reason why this one is important, because a lot of people think, well, first I'll feel confident and secure and abundant and all these things, then I'll act differently. But your identity is built through repeated behavior. And this is why taking bold action is so important, because you have to behave and act in a way, become the woman who has self-worth. So for everything you do from now on, ask yourself, what would the woman who has self-worth do? And I need to pause because there's a loud fighter jet. Okay, hopefully there's not a war. I live on Oahu. Every single branch of the military has a base here. So sometimes you hear stuff like that, and I'm assuming there's not a war, so I'm just gonna keep going. So anyway, act as the woman who has self-worth, even if you don't believe it yet, because once you reinforce that identity, eventually your subconscious will start believing it. So if you stayed with me this far, first of all, I want you to know how amazing you are, because it's not easy to admit to yourself that you're abandoning yourself or have low self-worth or any of these behaviors. So if you are still here, you are miles ahead of most other people, and that is abundance in action. So pat yourself on the back, do a happy dance, because you are amazing. And if this video resonated, I also want to tell you about my upcoming Money Muse Masterclass. So this is a time-sensitive topic because it's in June 2026. So I don't know when you're watching this video, but if you're watching it before June 9th, 2026, my Money Muse Masterclass is a 3-day masterclass, and it's all about becoming a money muse. And what is a money muse? This is a woman who feels safe in her body. So think random dance parties in your kitchen on a Monday morning. And she's also financially savvy, meaning she educates herself so that she can build her worth and make sound decisions in her financial life and all areas of her life. And it's a 3-day masterclass. It's 1 hour each day. Day 1, we are rewriting our money stories because our money stories are not ours. They were inherited from our parents, and we don't need to follow them anymore. We want to follow our own truth. So day 1, we are rewriting money stories. Day 2, we are working on being in the energy of abundance and embodying abundant energy on a daily basis. And we're going to talk about practical financial advice. So think budgeting, budget tools, just simple tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life that aren't overwhelming and super restrictive. And then day 3 is live hot seat coaching. So any of your burning questions, especially if you want to go deeper into rewriting your money stories, you can ask me live on day 3. So again, this is June 9th through June 11th, and this will be an active class. There will be participation. It's not just going to be me talking. And it's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I don't know how that translates because I'm in Hawaii. So it's in the morning, my time, excuse me. And that link will be in my bio. And if you can't attend live, there will be the replay available, but if you can, I highly recommend it because I will be giving away prizes to the live participants, and you don't want to miss the live hot seat coaching because this is your opportunity to get free. Oh, I don't think I even mentioned that. This entire masterclass is free. So this is your opportunity to get free coaching from me. So if this video resonated, you're also going to want to watch the next video because in video 8 of the Broke versus Abundant Energy series, we're going to talk about receiving, and that includes money and other things. So I will see you in video 8.